Hi everyone, my name is Felipe Maia Polo. I'm a PhD student in statistics at the University of Michigan. And today I want to present to you our work on multi-prompt evaluation of LLMs. So before I start talking about our method and our paper, I want to give you some context. So the idea here is that LLMs are very sensitive to the prompt template you give to them. So if you're giving the LLM some instruction, if you slightly change the template of your prompt, this can also change the output of the LLM. And then if you care about the evaluation, like if you're trying to evaluate your LLM in a certain benchmark, the scores you're gonna get for this benchmark, for your LLM in this benchmark, is also very dependent on the prompt you give to them. So we in this paper we want to get like a more like broader view. So instead of like for a certain benchmark you get just one measure of performance, which is the accuracy of your LLM in this benchmark, you're gonna get the measure of performance across like hundreds of prompts. So you're gonna get also a distribution of performances across hundreds of prompts. The main limitation of this idea is that if you want to evaluate your LLM using hundreds of prompts, this can be very expensive. So you want to make this process much more efficient. So, because let's say you have hundreds of prompts, you have thousands of questions, this becomes unfeasible, right? So our idea is to make this process much more efficient. So we can go to our solution now, which is given in this orange blocks here. So the idea is to use a matrix completion approach, and that can help us to have a much more efficient approach to this problem. So for each LLM, your data is gonna look something like this. So, and given a benchmark, you have like each one of the rows have different prompt variations. In each one of the columns, you have different questions from your benchmark. Ideally, what you want to do is like evaluate all prompts in all questions, but that's very hard. So what we do instead, we just sample some entries of this matrix. We just, let's say, observe 1-2% of the total number of entries. And here we are just assuming like the entries are zeros and ones, so LLM, the prompt get this question correct or not. But this can also be generalizable to other types of entries. But we are just observing some entries. The idea is to, after you observe those entries, we are using some matrix completion approach to fill the rest of the matrix. And then after we fill the rest of the matrix, we average across columns and get estimated average performance for each one of the prompts. And after you do that, you can just this is going to give you the full distribution of performances across all prompts. Okay, so now I can go to our method more concretely. So our method can be summarized in 3 steps. So the first one, we just observe some entries of that matrix, and we're gonna fit a model for correctness. So we are trying to model the probability of template or prompt I getting question J correct. And this model can be seen like as a neural network for classification. So, and in this model, we have 2 main components inside the logistic function. So we have a blue and a red component. The blue component is a measure of how good prompt I is. And the red component is a measure of how hard the question J is. So if these two, for example, if this difference is very high, the probability of prompt I getting question J correct is gonna be high as well. So let's parse this a little bit, how this is formulated. So we have xi. Xi can be seen as embedding for prompt I. J can be seen as embedding for question J. And then we have 2 neural nets, F and G. And these neural nets are just like neural nets that are gonna help you to map those embeddings in the real line. Okay, so you observe the data, you fit this model in the data using minimizing cross-entropy loss. You remember this can be seen as a classification problem. Step 2, we use the predicted probabilities given by our model to fill the matrix. So instead of having these question marks, now we're gonna have something between 0 and 1. And after we fill this matrix with these predicted probabilities, we can just average the columns and get the estimated performances. And step 3 is basically what I just told you. So, but we can see like the final results here. We have some examples. So here we have an example for MMIU high school biology. So we're trying to evaluate a certain LLM in this task. And the blue curve here is give us like the distribution of performances for this specific LLM in 100 prompts. And what we want to do is approximate this blue curve using our method. So we have the two variations of our method here, orange one and the green one. In the green one, we use embeddings for X and Z. In the orange one, we don't use any embeddings, but we use one-hot encodings for these two parts. And you can see that, for example, the green one is very close to the blue one, so we get a very small loss for our method here. And we have a baseline which performs not very well in this task. And the baseline would be given by this red curve, which is just like we sample some entries of the matrix, we just average those entries without any matrix completion. Okay, so this is our main contribution. So we have some other applications we work in the paper. So we show that our method can be used for best prompt identification. So you have these 100 prompts, you want to find the best prompt among them. You can also use our method for LLM as a judge. So because if you're doing LLM as a judge, your judge is also sensitive to the prompt you give to them. So instead of getting your judge to give just one score, you're going to have a distribution of scores given by the judge. And that's it. Thank you very much.